so many people out here and smiling faces and friends of Cam and a few people that I know as well. So I get the pleasure of kind of introducing and welcoming Cam. And I just want to tell you a quick story around that. So my family and I actually moved to Columbus in 2015 as I had this long-time vision of coaching basketball in Indiana. And when we first came here that first summer before the school year started, like June into July, I jumped into the coaching before the school year. And to be perfectly honest, our team was not very strong that year. Kind of struggled through the summer. And I had a few moments of thinking, what have I gotten myself into here? And started the school year off, and people were asking how the summer was going, things like that. And a couple of people said, you know, there's this guy who goes to school here who's a pretty good player, but he's not playing this year. And initially I thought, well, maybe I'll get to meet him. Maybe I'm pretty good at persuading people. Maybe I could convince him to come back and play basketball. So we actually had a meeting one time in my classroom, and pretty quickly I realized that Cam's passions were really around ministry. Not very much at all around basketball, but really was very, very impressed with him. I was like, wow, this is a young man who's operating at a much different level than a lot of high school students at the time. And then at some point we had a second meeting, and I realized, well, he's a little more normal. He also really likes girls. As I found out that he was getting engaged, and I was like, wow, a 17-year-old young man getting engaged. And then pretty soon after that, I was out at a football game Friday night at Columbus North and heard the terrible news about Cam's accident, that he was in a coma. And then as that story continued on, some of the things that he was dealing with the TBI, the traumatic brain injury. And over the next couple months and years, Cam and I have stayed connected, and I've been so impressed and encouraged by his story. Him getting married, his struggles with his traumatic brain injury, going to law school, having 4 kids, becoming a successful attorney. Side note here, Cam convinced my wife and I to do a living trust last year, and he helped us through the whole process, and it was awesome. So if you're ever in need of some legal services there, I give him a huge shout out and recommendation. But when I look at his story, it's not just another inspiring story about overcoming tremendous challenges, although it is that type of story. It's really a much deeper story of an amazing faith and a personal God who's carried him through so many struggles, showing his power, his grace, and his favor on Cam's life. Cam's story is very powerful. It's also very raw as he shares what happened to him, the effect that TBI had on him as he struggled through depression and even with some suicidal thoughts. And as he says in the book, TBI is a cross that he has to bear. As I've reflected on the themes in the book, family, trauma, and faith, I'm reminded and convicted of some things in my life, in my family, and in the young people I work with every day here at Columbus North. I think first of all, where is our identity? It's so easy to get our identity caught up in things that are fleeting. How much money do we make? How successful are we? How talented or how smart are our children? How many clicks do we have on social media for any teens here? Or how many wins we have for any basketball coaches in here? Reading Cam's story, I'm reminded again of the importance of establishing a Christ-centered identity in our family, and especially in our children, because that's what sustained Cam and has carried him through and has given him meaning and purpose in his life. I think the second thing that it's caused me to reflect on is just the struggles with mental health. When I was a teen, no one talked about mental health, and if you did, and you went to see a counselor, people thought you were weird. Cam details his struggles with depression, suicidal thoughts, and is very vulnerable about the issues brought on by TBI. And it's just a reminder to me as an educator that you never know what young people are going through and what teens are going through, and especially how trauma can trigger a new season of life where you may need help working through something. I think the third thing that's caused me to think more deeply about and reflect on is faith. Looking at our teens and our community, I think we need to ask the question again, how do we pass along faith to our children, our teens, and to our young adults? We can't just hand it off to the church and expect them to do the job. They're a great support. We have a lot of great churches here in Columbus, but the call from God is really for us as parents and for grandparents and for people, a multi-generational group of people, helping our young people and teens to grow in the faith. And as parents, we need to be very, very intentional about the training of the children in our home, studying the Bible with them, praying with them, and helping them on their journey. Our kids are going to face challenges in life, some greater than others, and we want them to stand on the rock that is Jesus. When I look at Camp's story, I think of the scripture in the Sermon on the Mount on Matthew 7, when the rain came down and the streams rose and the winds blew and beat against that house, yet it did not fall because it had its foundation on the rock. As Cam emphasizes over and over again in his book, the hope of man is in God. And this is really an incredible God story. So I guess maybe we give Cam a round of applause as he comes up.